Tonight, signs of life in the race against time to find the missing Titanic submarine. Victoria's 128 MPs facing a backlash over a big pay boost. A water warning after a chemical spill in Melbourne's west. Details live. A scam leaves a family facing a deportation fight after 20 years living in Melbourne. Captain Cummins leads Australia to an extraordinary Ashes Test victory. And later, the must-do tax moves to maximise your refund.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. There are possible signs of life tonight in the race to find the mini submarine that disappeared on a dangerous voyage to the wreck of the Titanic. In the past few hours, rescue crews have detected a banging noise every 30 minutes from 4 kilometres below the surface.
It seemed impossible, but just a few hours ago, signs of life from a sonar, which acts like a bionic ear underwater.
Crews searching for the sub reportedly heard today banging sounds at 30-minute intervals.
Followed by another unidentified noise close to the Titanic wreck and confirmed by the US Coast Guard.
Immediately, the first thing is it gets your hopes go skyrocketing up, but also it makes you think that, wow, time is really now against us.
And that's the bad news. Even if the mini sub is found and everyone on board is alive, how do they get them back to the surface?
This is a very complex search, and the unified team is working around the clock to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible.
But time may have already beaten them. The sub has as little as 24 hours of oxygen left, and to sail salvage equipment to the site will take 2 days.
I would assume they're stuck on the bottom in the mud or somehow entangled in Titanic.
Incredibly, at almost 4 kilometres under the surface, it's too deep for even a US Navy submarine to mount a rescue mission. They never venture that far down, and with good reason.
Submersibles implode. They crush down on themselves like a toothpaste tube.
Which has many asking how these homemade mini subs are allowed to go so deep, especially when they're not certified in America or anywhere else, and are steered by a cheap video game controller.
Perhaps there was a breach and water came in. I'm not very optimistic for their return.
Excitement or panic among those on board could also kill them. It's cramped and uncomfortable, and fear and adrenaline will only quicken their breathing. British billionaire Hamish Harding is a veteran adventurer with a cool head. So too Stockton Rush, the chief executive of OceanGate that owns the sub. The most experienced is former Navy officer Paul Henry Nagalay. And the only 2 rookies on board are father and son, Shahzada and Suleiman Dawood.
As it stands right now, it would be a miracle if they are recovered alive.
This photo of Harding was taken just before the sub entered the water on Sunday, staring at the ocean that now surrounds him.
The last thing I said to him was Godspeed, and I wished him luck with his dive.
In what's turned out to be a terrifying premonition, before he actually left this dock here in Canada on Friday, Hamish Harding told a podcast that he knew that this mission wasn't without risk.
So what I worry about most are things that will stop me from being able to get to the surface.
Right now, underwater drones are trying to confirm the source of that banging and to hopefully spot the missing sub. Until then, every breath is precious and every minute that ticks by is the enemy. Just a few days ago, the mood here in this Canadian port city of St John's was one of complete shock, but this news today has really lifted this entire community. It has given many hope where there previously was none. A look pouring into the city tonight, yet more Naval and Coast Guard recruits. They are desperate to join that frantic search out there in the North Atlantic Ocean, and they are well drilled. They know they have to move fast or risk, again, sinking this city with grief.
David Woyward in Canada, thank you. Daniel Andrews has defended a big pay rise for the state's 128 MPs as voters struggle with stagnant wages and rising living costs. The latest increase means the Premier's pay has jumped almost $100,000 over the past 6 years to make him the highest paid state leader in the country.
As their pay packets went up, their word count went down.
The politicians deserve it. Nothing?
if it's appropriate. Do politicians deserve them at this time?
Some MPs were happy to talk, just not about the issue at hand.
It's a wonderful day today and we're going to have a great day in Parliament. There you go.
Should they donate them?
In 2018, Daniel Andrews earned $394,000. A year later, he received a pay rise of almost 12%, taking him to $441,000. By 2021, that increased again to $452,000, then a jump of nearly $13,000, before this year's $16,000 leap to $481,000.
We do not set our own wages. And I think that is far preferable than politicians sitting in judgment of themselves.
That tribunal sends the Premier home with more than $9,000 a week. The average Australian wage is $1,800. That same tribunal also decides the wages for executives in the public service. A department secretary can earn up to $747,000.
We have to bargain, they get it bestowed on them.
The Deputy Premier earns $409,000, the Opposition Leader $383,000. That's the same salary as the Ministers for Education, Police and Health. The minimum wage for all politicians, $198,000. As well as a generous base salary, MPs can take home thousands of dollars more by sitting on committees or taking on extra responsibilities within Parliament.
Everyone deserves a pay rise. I know from our team, they work very, very hard.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
There's a toxic water warning for Melbourne's west tonight after a chemical spill in a creek. Estelle Griepink has the latest from Altona North. And Estelle, authorities suspect the substance has leaked from a factory.
Well, Mitch, the EPA has released an alert for the Altona area after reports of a chemical leak. Emergency services were called to a Brooklyn factory this afternoon after a nearby creek turned orange. Authorities are warning residents to steer clear of a section of the Corroit Creek at Hoskin Reserve and to also avoid stormwater drains. The EPA says the chemical that turned the creek orange can irritate the skin and eyes, but luckily it's now been contained to about 100 metres. Crews were on scene this afternoon testing the water to identify exactly what has caused this mess. But tonight, members of the public are being reminded to steer clear until the area is fully safe. Mitch?
Estelle Griepink at Brooklyn, thank you. A family caught in a deportation nightmare is fighting to stay in Melbourne almost 20 years after they made their home here. They could be ordered out because they were caught up in a scam, but their local community is rallying to help.
Soon Young Park, known to her friends as Lena, has years of memories in Melbourne. She's now at risk of deportation through no fault of her own.
They grew up here and they cannot imagine go back. There is nothing left in South Korea, especially to them.
Lena and husband Michael Lee migrated from Korea with their children in 2005. The 52-year-old palliative neurology nurse and her family applied for permanent residency in 2016, but their immigration agent pocketed their money and failed to lodge their application.
It's always concerning when you have someone taken advantage of and paying huge amounts of money, believing that they're applying for a visa.
Their only hope is for the Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles, to step in. Lena Park says her nursing colleagues were incredibly supportive when she told them about an online petition.
I almost cried, but it was work. I couldn't cry, but behind them I was crying at the car.
I'm hopeful and confident that the Minister will see that this is an appropriate time for him to step in.
The family has lived in the eastern suburbs for 18 years. They now must apply for bridging visas every 2 months. If an application is rejected, they'll be forced to leave Australia within 2 weeks.
Please see our contribution and then please don't ignore us and then let us stay in Australia. We love Australia, want to stay.
Late today, the Minister agreed to review the family's case. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Melbourne's oldest chocolate factory is in financial turmoil. Rochelle Brown has the details, and Rochelle, Ernest Hillier is now in the hands of administrators.
Mitch, the iconic chocolate brand has gone under, losing its battle against the rising cost of production. Staff here at the Coburg headquarters were this morning told they would be stood down as administrators search for a buyer to save the embattled company. It's a heartbreaking wait for workers who make chocolate stocked with major supermarkets like Coles, Woolies and Aldi. Ernest Hillier Chocolates has been operating across Australia since 1914, but is tonight on life support. The collapse comes just 24 hours after Allen's announced it's stopping the production of fantails because of falling demand and ageing machinery.
We've tried repairing it, new spare parts and so on, but it's reached the point where we would need to entirely replace it. And for a lolly that people aren't buying like they used to, unfortunately that just doesn't make sense. It's no longer that part of going to the movie that it once was.
The last run of fantails will be made next month before they disappear from the shelves forever. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown at Coburg North, thank you. There's heated debate in Canberra over whether the voice could be used to change the date of Australia Day. The Minister for Indigenous Australians has now backtracked after initially saying the advisory body won't give advice on our national holiday.
A national day of celebration.
Happy Australia Day!
The opposition claims could be threatened by the voice.
Would the voice have the power to advise the government to abolish Australia Day?
It is not the policy of this government to change the date of Australia Day.
But having told Parliament yesterday
it won't be giving advice on changing Australia Day.
Today, Linda Burney conceding it can, but the government won't listen.
The voice may give advice, but the Parliament retains its primacy.
The opposition changing tack, suggesting the voice's ability to advise the government would be unlimited.
Can the Minister name an issue that affects non-Indigenous Australians that does not affect Indigenous Australians?
Leaving the Minister exasperated.
I am not interested in culture wars. I am interested in closing the gap.
Anthony Albanese had had enough, organising a question to himself to launch a counterattack against Peter Dutton.
Australians have the sense to look past the fear-mongering of some.
Accusing Mr Dutton of employing the same tactics he used in boycotting the apology to the stolen generations.
It was nonsense then and it's nonsense now.
Abandoning his own wish for a civil debate. Mark Riley, 7 News.
In breaking news, police are on the scene of 2 armed hold-ups in North Melbourne. It's understood a man threatened a male teller with a knife inside the Commonwealth Bank on Errol Street. He demanded cash but fled empty-handed. He's then accused of holding up a supermarket on nearby Queensbury Street, making off with cash from the register. A school holiday squeeze is looming at Melbourne Airport, and that's where Blake Johnson is tonight. Blake, the airport hits top gear this weekend.
And it'll be very busy for the next 3 weekends, Pete. It's driven largely by overseas holidays. Likely a few of those are getting underway tonight on board SQ208. It's off to Singapore in about 10 minutes. Figures out of Melbourne Airport show a 12.8% rise in upcoming school holiday traffic compared to the same time last year. Domestic flying, interestingly, has stalled somewhat. The surge comes from international trips.
Internationals bounce back really quickly. Of the 87% of recovery, 10% of that is actually brand new services, brand new airlines or brand new destinations.
Sydney, Brisbane and the Gold Coast are currently top 3 choices for local travel. Singapore and Dubai are popular transit airports for overseas trips, and Bali is 3rd most popular. If you are lucky enough to be travelling these school holidays, arrive at least an hour before a domestic flight and 2 hours for international. Pete?
Blake Johnson at Tullamarine, thank you. Australia has claimed a heart-stopping victory in what's being labelled one of the greatest test matches ever played. It was a deeply emotional win for captain Pat Cummins, paying tribute to his late mother after leading the way in an extraordinary run chase.
5 thrilling days from ball one to end, 146 years of battling the old enemy with the sweetest finish of all.
And Australia are home. Ice in his veins, Pat Cummins.
Is it number one?
Number one, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
With the lucky ones who can always say with honesty they were at Edgbaston that day, Peter Cummins on his first trip away since losing his wife and Pat's mum Maria.
Really special. Yeah, Dad's been here all week, so I just feel really lucky to have him here. It's been a tough few months.
Chasing 281, 72 still needed when Usman Khawaja went, 8 down, 55 to go after losing Alex Carey. What might have been had Ben Stokes held on to Nathan Lyon.
There's a man out there!
Yeah, God, it's amazing, like...
Cummins, epitome of cool calm.
You feel, oh, well, it's mine to win or lose, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Don't listen to Lyon when he says he can't bat.
I don't know what happened. I think I had my eyes closed when that happened.
Lyon 16, Cummins 44, the narrowest margin of victory by wickets over England in more than a century, from Prime Minister to captain.
He is a legend and a great Australian on and off the field.
It couldn't have happened without these brash new English Bazballers. They have 4 tests yet to top this one.
Australia do Australia and we do we. That makes sense. If we said that a bit better, but...
Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
Great to see. The Demons have made a big selection call. Tim Watson, it's a blockbuster game tomorrow night.
It is, Mitch. They've already headed down the highway for a trip to Geelong. Mitch Cleary is live with a first look at the teams. And Mitch, they'll be without their star for another week.
Well, Tim, Clayton Oliver is missing a 4th straight game. The gun midfielder joining teammates in Geelong for today's unique build-up, but failing to prove himself for selection after his hamstring and infected blister. Premiership defender Harrison Petty back, forcing Adam Tomlinson out despite his strong recent form. At Geelong, Reece Stanley returns from his 10-week facial fracture to tackle Gawn and Grundy. While Paddy Dangerfield won't play, there was good news today in his bid for a speedy comeback. We'll have more in sport, Tim.
But also ahead, why Brad Scott won't be using emotional blackmail to keep 2 stars at Tullamarine, plus details on a fresh injury blow for the Saints. Mitch, an AFL legend, could be stripped of his title. We'll speak exclusively with the AFL boss. All that coming up shortly.
OK, thank you very much, Tim. Qantas is on the nose with travellers. Next on 7 News, why Australia's airline giant is taking a dive. Also coming up, police rammed in a chase drama in Melbourne's east. Angry victims of a serial killer unite in a show of force. Later, the research on when to take a nap to add years to your life.
And you want the umbrella by later tomorrow as we head into a soggy end to the week. Full details are later in 7 News.
A police chase has come to a crashing end in Melbourne's outer east. Police claim they were rammed by a stolen car that was later dumped and set on fire. The pursuit began at Mooralbark just after midday and the car was tracked through the Dandenongs. It ended with the arrest of a 25-year-old man at Cockatoo. State government MPs and crossbenchers have voted to defeat an opposition bill to stop Frankston serial killer Paul Denyer reapplying for parole. The move has left families of the victims devastated.
Just looking down and seeing, the people who are voting no, it's pretty upsetting.
We just want to stop. This is really torturous. The toll that this takes on the families is why we keep fighting.
The Attorney-General says she's looking at broader parole reform instead of a law specific to Denyer. Qantas has nosedived from 5th to 17th on the list of the world's best airlines. But it's much better news for one of the Flying Kangaroo's Pacific partners, a little airline now mixing it with aviation heavyweights.
Bula. Passengers arriving in Australia today straight off a Fiji Airways flight, just awarded the region's best airline.
It doesn't matter where you come from. You can take on the world.
Absolutely no surprise. It was fantastic. So as soon as I stepped on the plane, there was island music playing.
Oh, they were great. They were so friendly.
After bumping Qantas off top spot in Australia and the Pacific.
Over the last year, it's not
2 years, it's not been difficult to beat Qantas.
In what's known as the Oscars for airlines, Skytrax has put Singapore Airlines at number 1, followed by Qatar, All Nippon, Emirates and Japan Airlines. Qantas nosediving a dozen spots to a lowly 17th, 2 places behind surprise package Fiji Airways. Today worth a good gloat.
We beat Qantas and every other competitor to be declared the best.
Qantas is blaming a bad period of flight cancellations and lost luggage. If you ran this survey today, the results would be very different.
Hopefully it's a short stint for Qantas at number 17, but I think they will be back in that top 5 position very, very quickly.
At a time when airlines are happy to get any award they can with, more signs today of the turbulence caused by the rising cost of living. Rex has forecast a loss this financial year of $35 million, despite being declared in the awards Australia's best regional operator. Chris Marr, 7 News.
Russia has destroyed military and infrastructure targets in a new round of strikes on Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky says there have been several waves of Russian drone attacks on Kyiv in the span of just 4 hours. Ukraine's counter-offensive in the south and east is escalating, with claims they've recaptured over 100 square kilometres of land. Neil Danaher is facing a new health battle, with the footy legend struck down by a second bout of COVID. He stayed away from the MCG today as the total raised by his big freeze gave him more than 15 million reasons to smile.
Fight MND's staggering score.
$15,821,644.
But sadly, Neil Danaher not here to see it.
Unfortunately, he did pick up COVID, but he's recovering really well.
But it's obviously a concern.
It's not something that someone with MND will want to have, because it does impact them a lot more heavily than just the common person. So he's going well given the circumstances.
The Danahers overwhelmed by the amount raised because of our tough times.
I'm blown away. I honestly am. It makes me quite emotional.
It'll go straight into the effort to find a cure.
We're excited to announce the biggest ever investment in MND research in the coming months.
Matt Stickland was diagnosed with MND in 2015 and given just 3 years to live. But a Big Freeze funded drug trial appears to be slowing symptoms.
I think he's prolonging my life is how I feel about him.
To have Matt standing here today is incredible.
The fact that he's still around, still talking, still walking, it's just heartwarming.
And from today, a universal reaction.
Hope, definite hope.
Hope.
It's hope. It's hope. That's what it is.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Fingers crossed. A sporting star is fighting back from a brush with death. Next Racing almost claimed her life, but Jamie Carr is heading back to the track. Her exclusive interview is next. Also on 7 News, a truck driver escapes as his rig goes up in flames on the M80. And a race for tickets as Taylor Swift mania hits Melbourne. Climate activists have caused traffic mayhem for a third straight day along the eastern seaboard. In Port Melbourne, truck drivers were brought to a standstill before police intervened. The action was coordinated with protesters in Newcastle and Brisbane, where a woman chained herself between 2 cars. There was peak hour drama on the Western Ring Road as a truck burst into flames. The driver escaped the cabin just in time as firefighters worked quickly to minimise danger to the trailer. 2 lanes of traffic were closed, Greensboro bound, during the morning emergency. Star jockey Jamie Carr has made an emotional return to the track 3 months after a race fall that almost killed her. The 27-year-old says she now has just one more hurdle to clear to complete a fairy tale comeback.
3 months after a shocking fall, Jamie Carr is back on track, just not at full speed. But it's a breakthrough as she recovers from this.
There's a fall, fly ball's gone there.
Good to be back. It's been a very hard few months and I've been looking forward to this for ages.
The 27-year-old champion from the Mornington Peninsula was in a coma for 5 days with concussion, a brain bleed and a broken wrist and foot. Her balance and vision affected too. When she woke, she thought she was 18 years old and living at an old home in Adelaide. Carr's recovery has been slow but steady.
The last few weeks have been really difficult because I know in myself I feel normal, I feel back to myself, and just not going to work and not riding horses, that's been the hardest part.
For now, she has a restricted track work licence.
I've got to do one more balance neuro test, and when I pass that I can do jump outs and races.
She's hoping that is just a few weeks away, and despite being off the track for so long, Carr is still at the top of this season's Melbourne Jockeys Premiership table.
I really wanted to win the Premiership again this year, and hopefully I can add to that tally.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Good luck, Jamie. Senator Jackie Lambie has met with Defence Minister Richard Marles after she referred the military's top brass to the International Criminal Court. The maverick politician is claiming senior commanders have not been properly investigated for alleged war crimes in Afghanistan that took place on their watch. French police have raided the headquarters of the organising committee for the 2024 Paris Olympics over suspected corruption. The search is linked to alleged misuse of public funds and apparent favouritism in the awarding of construction contracts. And the son of US President Joe Biden is set to plead guilty to 2 tax crimes. Hunter Biden is also expected to admit to illegally possessing a gun while he was a drug user. A criminal inquiry has taken 5 years, but he's reached an agreement which means he'll most likely avoid jail time. And tennis legend Martina Navratilova has revealed she's cancer-free. The 66-year-old was undergoing treatment for throat and breast cancer, but now says doctors have given her the all-clear. Navratilova won 59 Grand Slam titles during her career, including 3 Australian Opens. Music fans are in meltdown after global pop superstar Taylor Swift announced 2 upcoming shows at the MCG. Ticketek's website has already been slammed with 1 million hits for tickets, prompting a warning to beware of scammers.
Taylor Swift is coming back to Melbourne, the news sending Swifties into a frenzy. At 2 a.m, the mega pop star announced to the world 5 Australian dates on her global tour.
Refreshed the page and it came up international dates right up the top, and I lost my mind.
2 at the MCG on February 16 and 17, and 3 in Sydney. As radio stations started the giveaways...
2 tickets for you, Olivia.
Oh my God, my sister's going to be so jealous.
Fans in snubbed capital cities vented.
It was the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning, so I was a bit shattered.
The elaborate shows run for 3 hours and 40 minutes. Tickets start at $80, rising to $380 for a reserve. A VIP package for diehard fans offers a seat and merchandise for $1,250. And it means another massive cash injection for the city, with sellout concerts like Ed Sheeran's boosting hotel occupancy.
Those in Brisbane and Perth won't get her in their city this time, and so of course they'll have to come to Melbourne.
Given the huge demand, there are fears that desperate fans will be targeted by scammers. Frontier Touring is warning anyone wanting to buy a ticket that Ticketek is the only company authorised to sell them. Tickets go on sale on June 30. Unprecedented demand for US dates crashed ticketing websites and triggered a Senate hearing.
I think it will be absolutely massive, like something we've not seen before.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
Daytime napping could be the answer to a longer life, according to new research. Next on 7 News, when to grab some shut-eye to boost your health. Also ahead, a new twist in the Lawyer X scandal. A one-time Australian Olympic hero facing a new legal storm. And the must-do tax moves to maximise refunds. That's just before Jane's weather. A special investigator hired to probe the Lawyer X scandal is now threatening to quit. Former High Court Judge Geoffrey Nettle told Parliament it's a waste of time and resources to continue. He claims the Director of Public Prosecutions is refusing to lay charges against Victoria police officers he has evidence against. The Lawyer X scandal centred on police using former gangland barrister Nicola Gobbo as an informant. Olympic swimming champion Neil Brooks and his wife Linda have been ordered to stand trial over an alleged fraud worth nearly $2 million.
Obviously really disappointed today. Maybe the whole story is supposed to be told because there's so many moving parts to it, and at committal it was just the tip of the iceberg of what's happened here.
The couple is accused of defrauding a business partner over a failed plan to sell sports tattoo sleeves. Now to finance editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, the share market's hot streak has come to an end.
Yes, Peter, after 7 higher finishes, the ASX 200 took its cue from a weak Wall Street overnight and retreated. Flight Centre took the wooden spoon after updates from its investor strategy session today disappointed. The Aussie dollar has slipped back under 68 US cents, while gold prices have also taken another leg lower. And as we know, consumers are tightening their belts. That doesn't just mean fewer trips to the shops, but also pulling back on what they plan to buy online. That's according to a new survey from investment bank UBS, which shows online spending intentions have plunged in recent months. Peter.
Thank you, Gemma. Scientists have discovered a surprising link between a daytime nap and a healthy brain. They found that finding time for a little afternoon snooze can help keep you healthier for longer.
New research shows a nap a day could keep the doctor away by helping our brains stay sharp.
We have this really strong belief in Western society that we shouldn't sleep during the day. Having a sleep during the day is actually a pretty normal thing.
Researchers analysed DNA samples and brain scans from 35,000 people between 40 and 69 years old. They found nappers who took a short daytime snooze helped preserve the health of their brain as though it were 2.5 to 6.5 years younger.
I think we are at this stage kind of scratching the surface of the role that sleep plays generally in brain health and in particular with respect to dementia.
Some previous studies suggest a 5 to 15 minute nap is the sweet spot, ideally by early afternoon or before, so it doesn't interfere with the nighttime sleep routine.
Adults need 7 to 8 hours sleep each day, but most of us aren't getting it. Nearly 2 out of 3 Australians report having trouble falling or staying asleep.
We might prioritise other aspects of health like getting up early for the gym or looking at nutrition. Sleep's really important, so don't necessarily sacrifice sleep over those other things.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Sport is next with a fully awake Tim Watson. And Tim, the Cats are keeping a close eye on the Demons.
They are. Mitch, Geelong had front row seats to Melbourne's session today. Up next, Chris Scott reveals his dirty tactics to get the inside scoop ahead of tomorrow night's blockbuster. The Bombers make a call on Darcy Parish and lean on a club legend to keep a star defender at the club. Ross Lyon reveals his captain's injuries concern with another star set for a long stint on the sidelines. And the record-breaking Aussies on their way to the home of cricket with a pep in their step. Welcome back. Cats coach Chris Scott kept a close eye on the Demons as they entered enemy territory ahead of tomorrow night's blockbuster in Geelong. Scott also revealed he's had to hold Paddy Dangerfield back from making a miraculous return.
A trip down the highway for these Demons is usually met with hostility.
We roll out the red carpet to every opposition team.
This afternoon, Melbourne ditching Amy Park for Cardinia Park for its captain's run before an overnight stay in Geelong, treating tomorrow's clash with the reigning Premier as if they were an interstate team, leaving the tenants on high alert.
100%. Listening devices, the whole 9 yards.
Clayton Oliver to miss a 4th straight week after his hamstring. Geelong calling for extra midfield support for Retro Round and Chris Scott's 300th game. Scott's Cats sitting 10th and staring down missing finals for just the 2nd time in his 13 years.
Competitors lean into those moments and those who aren't quite as competitive or confident in the capacity that you have get daunted and shy away from it.
Go into most games confident that we can win, so nothing really changes there. Just got to execute for longer.
Reece Stanley facing Gawn and Grundy for his first game back since round 5. The AFL fixture costing Paddy Dangerfield a return from his 20% collapsed lung.
They're saying if the game was Sunday, Monday, then he'd probably be okay to play, so that's a good sign for the following week.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
An AFL legend is set to be stripped of his status in the Australian Football Hall of Fame. Tom Brown is live with the latest. And Tom, this really is poor timing for the league.
Tim, all indications are Barry Cable will lose his Hall of Fame status. The Commission will officially meet on Tuesday ahead of the Hall of Fame function that night. Removing Cable certainly on the agenda. There won't be a technical decision next Tuesday for 2 reasons. Cable will have an opportunity to respond. There'll be some type of process, and the new rule that allows removal officially actually starts after Tuesday night.
The Hall of Fame Charter has a provision in that where you can deal with conduct unbecoming or prejudicial or court hearings. So that's something that the AFL Commission will look at over the coming weeks.
Tim, separately, Gil McLachlan's back from Paris the next 2 days. His priority now the pay deal. Essendon separately recruiting in a legend to pitch to Mason Redman.
Darcy Parish will return this week. Sources increasingly confident he'll knock back Geelong and recommit to the Bombers.
I'm not going to go down the path of trying to coerce or emotionally blackmail either of those players into staying at Essendon. You know, they've got to want to stay for the right reasons.
Mason Redman is also out of contract. Adelaide and Port interested in the South Australian. The club's most famous number 27, legend Simon Madden, part of a pitch to Redman in a video.
Clubs often make pitches to players from other clubs, but don't sell the vision to their own. So I think that's a really important part of our responsibility to be really explicit about, what is it that we're building here.
Dylan Shields still dealing with a foot complaint. Draper out indefinitely with a hip issue.
Could be next week, could be longer. And the only reason we're vague is because we don't know ourselves.
Meanwhile, at the Saints, Ross Lyon says Tim Membry needs a 6 to 8 week training block to get his body right after dealing with knee soreness.
So he could train and play, but he just doesn't feel, it's as strong as it should be. And so, we've mapped out a plan. I think Geelong did it with Dangerfield.
Lyon revealing Captain Jack Steele is dealing with an Achilles niggle, but will face the Lions on Friday night. Tom Brown, 7 News.
The Aussie Test team will head to Lord's brimming with confidence, eyeing a 2-0 series lead in the Ashes. Captain Pat Cummins hailed the Edgbaston heroics as his best Test match ever, partnering with Nathan Lyon to snatch victory in the final overs.
Edgbaston, the great escape, led by the captain, his best Test ever.
And Australia are home. Ice in his veins, Pat Cummins.
Number one, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Start of Ashes series, number one.
Earlier, All England, 20 for Scott Boland's shift as night watchman, Travis Head, 16. That first innings 100 plus another 50 for Usman Khawaja. Drink spiked more verbals between Uzi and Ollie Robinson. The paceman's deeds undoing Cam Green for 28. A wake-up call for Alex Carey on 65, Khawaja cracked. Carey 20, a Joe Root classic. Unwatchable, unmissable, Q Cummins. His big hitting unbeaten 44 brought victory in sight. Ben Stokes almost snared Nathan Lyon. Australia avoiding England's grasp by 2 wickets. 281, Australia's highest chase in England since Don Bradman's 1948 Invincibles.
Yeah, that's special. Bloody special.
I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely myself for the last 5 minutes there.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
It was also Australia's day at the Wimbledon lead-up tournament in Queens. World number 18 Alex de Minaur thrashed 2-time All-England club champion Andy Murray in straight sets, while Alexei Popyrin slammed into an advertising board on match point of his loss to fellow Aussie Jordan Thompson. And don't forget the front bar tonight. Mitch live at 8:30 here on 7 with Gary Ablett Jr., the special guest, one of the great players or the greatest players ever to play the game.
Of all time.
Of all time, Mitch.
And then how about that win in Edgbaston? Happy with that?
Unbelievable. A lot of bleary-eyed people around today.
Extraordinary. Thank you, Tim. The clock's ticking down to tax time. Next, the must-do moves to maximise refunds in a year where every cent counts. That's coming up. Also, Jane Bunn with the forecast. Jane, is there any rain on the way?
Mitch, there is some rain ahead, but it falls mainly while it's dark and not during the day. I'll have the full 8-day outlook shortly.
Tax time is just around the corner and there are some must-do moves to maximise your return. 7 News has called in the experts to help you cash in on a year where every cent counts.
Tax time on June 30th will be crucial to keep the doors open.
We've had the shop for about 28 years. At the moment it's really tough and we're trying to stay bright. It is tricky.
This year there are some changes to watch out for. The tax offset worth up to $1,500 for low and middle income earners expires. If you're working from home, you can claim 67 cents per hour for expenses, but that's down from the 80-cent shortcut during the pandemic. Thinking of donating to a charity or paying for a subscription or membership fee related to work, do it now. And for property investors, you can claim interest deductions.
For the amount that you borrowed to purchase your rental property.
It's important to keep track of your assets, such as property and shares, and identify any gains or losses that could take more off your tax bill.
Talk to your accountant, see whether selling that asset will generate a loss to offset that gain and reduce your tax.
Different rules can apply to different types of taxpayers.
And this year, the ATO has ramped up compliance, so keep your receipts and check them twice. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Now here's Jane with the weather.
Thank you, Mitch. It is not warming up anytime soon and we'll be able to add some rain into the mix as well. The city fell to 4.2 overnight. Chilly, but only our coldest June night in 2 years. It struggled to thaw out in the sunshine that followed, peaking at just under 12 as cloud thickened during the afternoon. It was literally freezing in Coldstream and Laverton, while Avalon went below freezing this morning. Then as the cloud built from the northwest, they were the coldest suburbs this afternoon. Only 10 in Essendon and 9.9 at the airport. Further north, the frost was more severe, combined with fog that really struggled to clear, a rather eerie start to the day that lingered for a long time. There were several towns on -2 again this morning. Deniliquin dropped to -3, but the afternoon temperatures are exceptionally cold. The maximums in through here have been just 5 and 6 degrees in parts of the northeast. That is thanks to cloud, a foggy low cloud that only very slowly cleared out, that one in through here. Then this mid to high level cloud coming down from the northwest. It is very cold under that. We have patchy, very light rain falling. The proper rain arrives tomorrow. A high pressure system moving to our east usually acts to warm us up, but the cloud has stopped that occurring coming out ahead of our next weather system. That there will bring rain as the cold front slowly slides across Victoria. The direction of movement of that means that northern and western parts of the state see the most from this one. Around the nation tomorrow, a bit of that cloud reaches the east coast, but dry in Brisbane, only a light bit of rain in Sydney from later in the day. Canberra begins with frost, ends the day with rain. That rain arrives in Hobart late in the day too, but it's there all day in Adelaide. Heavy at times, the risk of thunderstorms. Perth is showery. To Victoria, the cloud means there's much less frost at first tomorrow. Light and patchy rain to begin before the widespread steady rain develops in the northwest corner later in the morning. Then that spreads right on through the northwestern half in the afternoon. The far northwest may see storms later too. Snow develops in the Alps at night. Closer in tomorrow is cloudy, but it should be dry all the way through the day. There's the slightest risk of a spit of light rain. That changes at night as this comes down from the north, spreading right on through. Light but persistent once it gets going. We may reach 14, but the day's grey, so it'll continue feeling cold. Dry all through the day, then light rain arrives at night. On the 8-day outlook, that light rain continues into early Friday. Now, the day may actually be quite dry, but we'll have cloud overhead. It's 13. On Saturday and Sunday, tops of 14. There's the chance of showers in the afternoon and evening, but all of our showers next are Sunday night and Monday. We may reach 14. Tomorrow is dry but grey all through the day, then light rain tomorrow night.
All right then. Thank you very much, Jane. Now here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the interrogation of Matt Shervington, the lie detector grilling live. What will be revealed?
It's going to be fun. Plus, Sarah Jessica Parker comes clean on the Sex and the City feud, her only TV interview. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 21st of June. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus and with 7news.com.au. You'll know the news now.